Guys, I wasn't ready. I was not ready. Why is Miss World the way that it is? Every time when I watch Miss World, it's completely the opposite of what I expect it to be. We are definitely going to be talking about the end results. Thailand winning against all odds and everything. But of course, this is a review and we have to talk about the whole pageant. One thing that I did appreciate about Miss World 2025 is the fact that there was so much Indian culture brought into the entire production as well as the performances. Even for opening number, it was very Indian because Miss World is being hosted by Telangana this year. And one thing that I also love is during the opening number, the contestants all came out in their gorgeous national costumes that they were wearing at the opening ceremony of Miss World. Now, of course, big time pageant fans and followers like you and me, we've seen these outfits, you know, they're nothing new to us. Even though there were some contestants like South Africa, for instance, I noticed wasn't wearing her opening ceremony outfit, but all in all, most of the contestants were wearing the same outfit that they did at the opening ceremony way back weeks ago at the beginning of Miss World 2025. But I'm sure this was a feast for the eyes for people who haven't been following every single event of Miss World. You know, because I can't relate to those people, but we need to keep them in mind as well. It felt like everybody was on stage at once, and they were, and it was very chaotic, but in the best, like, Miss World way possible. I also have to mention that one of the hosts was actually a former Miss World, Stephanie Del Val, who was Miss World 2016 from Puerto Rico. For introductions, what I did appreciate is that there were no girls screaming into microphones, and they all changed into their evening gowns in order to be introduced. It definitely did feel like an evening gown competition with the way some of the girls were walking, but the music didn't match the vibe of an evening gown competition at all. It was way too disco-y. The stage and the cameraman was way too busy. But hey, there were 100+ contestants to get through. And honestly, there were surprisingly a lot of slips and stumbles and almost falls during the introduction segment, especially with Armenia, poor girl, her dress got totally stuck. But yes, it just felt like a lot of the girls didn't really practice walking in the gowns that they were wearing. And then after a serious quick change for the 100+ contestants' third outfit change of the evening, they all came out in beautiful Indian garments of different colors and different colors representing different continents. It was definitely a colorful, beautiful feast for the eyes, and they brought out the designer of these garments as well. But I do actually feel like they could have had this segment be the introductory segment for the girls, like the girls being introduced in their Indian outfits instead of their evening gowns. I feel like for the evening gowns, they should have saved that for the top 40 or the top 20, because like I said before, 100+ gowns, the stage was just too busy, and it would have been much more special and girls had much more attention to their specific garments if it was just for the top 40 or like a privilege reserved for the top 20, you know. I know we want to get as many eyes on these beautiful garments from all across the world as possible, but I just feel like in the interest of entertainment, it would have been better for the evening gowns to be something reserved for the top 40 and the top 20, and for these beautiful Indian garments to be coupled with the introductory segment to be introducing the candidates. For the judges, I don't really care about anyone on the judging panel except of course for Grandma Julia and also Manushi Chiliar, who was Miss World 2017. She's of course from India, so it just makes sense to have her on that judging panel. I did see a lot of people complain because a majority of the judges were Indian, and a lot of people thought that this would automatically mean that India would win. But later it was proven that this was not the case, because India did not get into the coveted top 2 spots. Next up, they went all into the challenge winners. We already know who the challenge winners are and were because, you know, we've been following the pageant. And if you don't, you should have watched my prediction because I did say who all of the challenge winners were in my prediction. The first hour of Miss World, I've come to notice, is just to tell all of the dedicated pageant fans things we all already knew. But this, an hour in, is where we got to brass tacks finally, because we were introduced to the top 10 from every continent. For the Americas, it was the Dominican Republic, Trinidad and Tobago, Puerto Rico and Martinique who were the challenge winners, so we already knew they were in the top 10 for Americas. But then Argentina, Brazil, Haiti, Jamaica, Panama and the United States were all announced to be in the top 10 for the Americas and the Caribbean. Now, I got 2 out of 6 of the 6 candidates that we didn't know were gonna be in the top 40. I only got 2 of them and I was like, okay, because I was very, very happy that Brazil made it, but I was shocked that Nicaragua didn't make it because she was a big fave of mine. I also said Jamaica was strong, so I wasn't surprised that she was in. The 2 candidates that I did predict to get in were Brazil and Jamaica, and they made it, and they are amazing contestants, so I'm very glad that they made it. But the USA, I don't know. I was shocked that the USA made it into the top 10 of the Americas and the Caribbean. For Africa, the fast track winners were Uganda, Namibia, Cameroon and Zambia, but the judges' choice were Botswana, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Somalia, Tunisia and Zimbabwe. Guys, no South Africa! No South Africa! That must have been such a shock to so many people all around the world who had her as their top fave. She was my number 4 personally. I thought that she would get pretty far because even though she's young and, you know, there were some things about her that I didn't really, you know, if you watched the head-to-head, I still thought at least she would get this far, but for South Africa, not even to get into the top 10 of Africa, I'm sure was shocking to so many people. I mean, I clearly suck at predicting Miss World, but I felt like South Africa deserved to be in the top 10, and Kenya also. Kenya to me was also amazing, and I felt like she also deserved to be in the top 10. I'm very passionate when it comes to Africa. Can you tell that I'm from here? But I don't know. For South Africa, that is my birth country. My current home country is Namibia. For South Africa not to make it felt like 2020 when Natasha Uber was a predicted favorite at Miss Universe and she failed to place. For Europe, the fast track winners were Wales, Ireland, Montenegro and Estonia. But the judges' choices were Belgium, Italy, Northern Ireland, Poland, Serbia and Ukraine. I only got 1 out of 6 correct in Europe, and that one was Northern Ireland, guys. Can we just talk about the fact that France, and to a lesser degree, because I know not a lot of you vibe with her, but I vibed with her majorly, Spain. Can we just talk about the fact that these 2 women did not make it, especially France. For Europe, I don't know. The one woman that I got correct was Northern Ireland, which is, I guess it's some consolation because I do like her a lot, but wow, the fact that France and Spain, my top 2 for Europe, were left out, that cut. Like, not as deep as South Africa not making top 40, but almost, like right next to the spot where I was cut with South Africa. At this point, I was wounded watching Miss World. For Asia, the fast track winners were Indonesia, India, Thailand and Turkey, but the judges' decision was Australia, loved her from the start, Lebanon, Malaysia, New Zealand, Philippines and Vietnam. Surprisingly, Asia and Oceania was my most successful group. I got 4 out of 6. Thank you very much. But I was shocked about Sri Lanka because I felt like Sri Lanka was on par with Philippines and Thailand and India throughout the competition. I don't know about you guys because I think Sri Lanka is an amazing woman, and the fact that she didn't make it into the top 10 for Asia, suspicious to say the least. So out of all of the Beauty with a Purpose candidates for the continents, it ended up being Asia's candidate, Indonesia, who won the overall Beauty with a Purpose award. Now, you guys know that throughout Head to Head, I fell in love with her just because of her sincerity and the fact that she's so serious about her cause, about clean drinking water, etc. So I felt like Indonesia's Beauty with a Purpose win was very much deserved, but then again, any of these Beauty with a Purpose projects would have been very much deserved. But this is where Miss World threw me my first curveball, because they went straight into announcing top 5s for all of the continents, and I was just like, based on what? There was no discernible smidgen of competition between any of the top 40 candidates, and we're going straight into top 20 based on what? Based on what? Anyway, for the Americas, it was Argentina, Brazil, who was a big favorite of mine, Martinique, whom I absolutely adored, Puerto Rico, who I had at my number 6, so does that give me a half point or something? And lastly, the United States. I refuse to believe that the United States got into the top 5, because she was literally carrying her dress at introduction the whole time. I got 2 out of 5 of the top 5 correct, and that would have been Brazil and Martinique, which they were both my literal top 2 for America, so I was happy at this point. For Africa, it was Cameroon, Ethiopia, Namibia, who, yes, I was so happy at this point, Nigeria and Tunisia. So I also got 2 out of 5 for Africa, and I was so happy about Cameroon and Namibia, but especially Namibia, because you guys know that's my home country, and I just adore Selma. I think she's beautiful, and I'm just so proud of what she's been able to accomplish. Okay, Rina, calm down. I just, you know, I'm very patriotic like that. Anyway, I, however, do think that Uganda deserved to be in the top 5 for Africa. For Europe, the top 5 was Ireland, Italy, Poland, Ukraine, and Wales. Honestly, at this point, I didn't care about Europe anymore. I was still shocked about France and Spain, but I did also get 2 out of 5 of the top 5 of Europe, which was Ireland and Wales, but it stung that Spain and France were missing from this top 5. For Asia, we had Australia, India, Lebanon, the Philippines, and Thailand. Indonesia was unfortunately out at this point, which is kind of shocking because she was the overall Beauty with a Purpose winner, and that's what Miss World claims to be, their whole thing. But I did get 3 out of 5 of the predicted top 5 for Asia, so obviously I'm very talented at predicting Asia alone at Miss World. And also I was very happy about Australia because she was my predicted number 6, and I did love her from the start. At this point though, the buffering on my computer started going crazy. That didn't stop me from watching, however, but like it just got a little bit annoying, and it's just, YouTube never buffers like this. I feel like YouTube is very well optimized to work with even the craziest Wi-Fi situations, okay? And so I just felt like, why not just make it convenient and post it where people can watch it, even though our Wi-Fi router is an Apple plugged into a wall or something. I just want to know, why exploit us all out of $9 180 something South African rand, only to give us this buffering sound quality-ish mess that we got? But I don't even know why I'm asking that question, because we already know. And you guys will not believe, they went straight to top 2 right after announcing the top 5, and I'm just like, based on what? Based on what? If the top 8 is selected from the start, why waste our time? Just start off the whole thing by announcing the top 8. We'll have to sit down and watch for like 20 minutes, and then we can all just move on with our lives. Why on earth are you giving us a beauty pageant without any pageant to speak of. The top two for Americas was Brazil and Martinique, and this was some consolation because I was so happy that Brazil was in my top two, and I was so happy that Martinique was in the top two as well because they were my predicted top two, so I got 2 out of 2 for the Americas. For Africa, it was Ethiopia and Namibia. At this point, I was so happy because I was starting to stress at this point about my home country. She was in my top two. Ethiopia unfortunately wasn't, so I was just so happy about Namibia making the top two. For Europe, it was Poland and Ukraine. My top two were Spain and France, so moving on. For Asia, it was the Philippines, who was my number 5, but I was very happy for her. And surprisingly, Thailand, who was my number 2 in my top 2. So I was very happy to see her there as well. I was definitely expecting to see India in the top 2. So the top 8 was selected at this point, and I literally thought at this point they were gonna just straight up go to top 4, weren't they? Because what kind of competition have we seen so far? But luckily we had a smidgen of competition. We had the Q&A. So all of the girls got the same question, which basically came down to why do you deserve to be continental queen of your continent? Because the winner and the runners-up were going to be selected from the continental queens. And so, for that reason, everybody got the same question, but nobody was wearing headphones or something that prevented them from knowing the question. So, by that logic, the very first person to answer the question would be at a huge disadvantage compared to the last people to answer the question. Because if this person is answering the question first and there's 7 people in between to the last person, then that last person is gonna have forever to think about the answer of the question, right? Am I the only one who is seeing this flaw in the system? Maybe they don't care. I don't know. Anyway, Martinique spoke beautifully, although her nerves did come through somewhat. I thought she was a bit stronger than Brazil in her answering. For Africa, Namibia answered the question beautifully as well. Very strong. I would say between Namibia and Ethiopia, I would have still chosen Namibia based on her answer, but maybe the judges preferred Ethiopia's answer, of course. For Europe, Poland was obviously very nervous. She didn't really capture me, honestly. Ukraine was also nervous. I don't know. I cannot ethically get behind this European top 2, okay? Sorry, give me France, give me Spain. For Asia, we had Philippines, who had a very well thought out answer. She beautifully incorporated the question. Thailand didn't have a bad answer either. So for me, in Asia, the Philippines and Thailand was sort of on par with each other. I cannot necessarily say who was better in this category. And so it was finally time to announce the continental queens from whom the winners and runner-up would be picked. Miss World Americas was Martinique. This I thought was very well deserved. She and Brazil were equally my favorites. I just love Martinique. Miss World Africa was Ethiopia. I was so sad for my country. I'm not gonna lie, because you know, I try not to be biased. Often if I don't think my country has what it takes, I will just not put the country, right? But I really felt like this year Namibia had a shot, and even evidently we did, because Selma did perform beautifully, and it was mainly just up to the judges' discretion. I know that, I respect that, but yo, I cannot pretend that it didn't break my heart a little bit when Namibia was not called into that top 4. Miss World Europe was Poland, and Miss World Asia was Thailand. I was definitely not mad about this. She is gorgeous and it was all very well deserved. So I've realized that a lot of people really misunderstood the format that Miss World put out. A lot of people assumed that the continental winners would not be the same as the woman who actually won and her runners-up. They assumed that the runners-up from the winners' continent and the first, second and third runners-up, like the top 8 contestants who don't get into the top 4, they assumed that those women would be the continental queens. But no, obviously, as we've seen, Miss World and the runners-up were all chosen from the top 4 continental queens, and then the winner's continent, which in this case happens to be Asia, her runner-up from the top 8 goes and automatically becomes Miss World Asia. So right now the Philippines is actually Miss World Asia because Thailand, who was originally Miss World Asia, became Miss World 2025. I hope that makes sense. Can I just say, before we talk about the top 4 Q&A, that I just adore Miss World's way of having places to sit for contestants like next to the stage to watch it all happen. I think that's so beautiful compared to other pageants where the contestants who don't make it have to undignifiably go and disappear backstage, never to be seen again. I love the way that Miss World still makes space for all of the women, even if they didn't make it, like next to the stage with their little podiums and their names and their flags. It's very cute. I feel like all pageants should incorporate this. So for the top 4 judges question, they all had different questions, and I'm not gonna reiterate the questions. I'm just gonna give you what I felt the vibes were of the women's answers, because you can always go back. I'm sure there's a million videos all over your TikTok feeds and your Instagram pages or whatever about all of the Q&As. So I'm just gonna tell you my thoughts on what I thought the answers were like. Martinique was just so sincere. She's just so sincere and beautiful overall. I really would not have minded her as the new Miss World. Ethiopia gave a beautiful answer. She really spoke from the heart, and I think that that was also a factor in why the judges selected her as the best in Africa at the end of the day. Poland definitely did not formulate the answer the best. If we're being honest, she was very rambly. It was just not an answer you give on stage at finals in the top 4. She was doing too much and she even went over time. So Poland was a definite no for me. Thailand asked for the question to be repeated, which is fair, but I don't think she answered the question exactly the way that the judges intended it to be answered, but sometimes that's a nice surprise, you know. It was still a well thought out answer, and sometimes if you throw the judges a little bit of a curveball and divert how they expected you to answer the question, that can also count in your favor, which I think it definitely did for Thailand. At this point, I'm going to be very honest with you. After the judges Q&A, I was leaning towards Ethiopia or Martinique and Thailand, but definitely not Poland. If I had to choose one at this point, it would have been possibly Ethiopia or Martinique, but Thailand wasn't bad either, but definitely not Poland. Poland just honestly didn't seem refined enough to be standing on that stage in the top 4. Christina came out Miss World 2023/2024. She looked very extravagant. She had a beautiful final walk gown that just kept grabbing your attention. It was matching the Miss World crown, and I definitely also loved the beautiful final speech that she gave as well. She was an excellent Miss World against all odds, and definitely one of the most beautiful Miss Worlds ever. After this, of course, it was finally time to name Miss World 2025, or the runner-ups first rather, and of course this is always Julia Morley's thing to do. And as the third runner-up, they had Martinique, which I thought was a crime. I thought it was a crime to have this beautiful, sweet, sincere woman as the third runner-up, the lowest ranking of the top 4. That is absolute insanity to me. But second runner-up was Poland. I, of course, as you may have guessed, would have put Poland at third runner-up. And before we talk about the actual winner, can we just talk about Julia Morley's outfit on stage? You know, listen, the woman has done a lot. She's a hard-working pioneer in the pageant industry, but I'm just so amazed by the fact that she arrives there, no glitz, no glam, like in the type of Sunday afternoon grocery shopping outfit that you would see your grandmother wear. I mean, I love her. I love the confidence. She knows she doesn't have a lot to prove, so she just shows up in whatever. So the first runner-up ended up being Ethiopia, but the overall winner, guys, was Thailand, and this was shocking on so many levels because Thailand was dethroned at Miss Universe because she wanted to go and compete at Miss World. She wasn't literally Miss Universe. If you guys don't know this, Thailand competed at Miss Universe 2024 back in November, and she competed there. She got third runner-up, and then a while afterwards she decided that she wanted to go to Miss World on behalf of Thailand. And so I think there was a contractual thing where even the runner-ups of Miss Universe aren't allowed to do anything for like a year or something. And she was just like, I'm going to Miss World. Sorry, deal with it. And they dethroned her as third runner-up. I didn't even think that that was a thing. Like, how useless is dethroning runner-ups? It's so petty, you know what I mean? Just let people live their lives. They didn't win She didn't win Miss Universe. Just let her go on with her life. And this just goes to prove she was right. She was right she was definitely correct for deciding to go to Miss World. This is destiny. It has all paid off. And honestly, I'm just so happy for her. I followed her at Miss Universe Thailand and she was fantastic, and I have no doubt that she is going to be an excellent Miss World. So congratulations to everyone from Thailand. You have a reigning Miss World. This is super exciting, and she definitely is a powerhouse woman. I've been following her for a very long time, so I'm so glad that Opal Suchata Chuangsri is our new Miss World. So anyway, guys, that's everything that happened at Miss World and my thoughts about it. Let me know what you guys thought about it all. I think Miss World can definitely do with some changes, if we're being honest, because this story of going from 40 to 20 to 5 with no competition in between is just... why? Can we have something? Like, give us something at least in between to make us think that there's a competition. At least. Otherwise, just say who the top 8 is from the beginning. Stop wasting our time. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.